Les Miserables.
What? You saw this? Okay, I'm ready. I'll be quiet.
Yeah, okay, so I'll give you the mini review, but I want to skip past that. Anyway, if you can get over several distractingly subpar singing performances, and I'm not sure I can, there's a lot to like. The onset singing does add to the dramatic effectiveness, though. I was most impressed by how the story is made easy to follow. 3.5 stars. Okay, Bob, we didn't see this last year almost on principle. um, but HBO has been airing a lot of last year's best movies, so I just TiVoed this one on a whim, and I just flipped it on a Saturday evening. From everything I heard, I didn't think I'd like it, so I was impressed that so much about Les Mis worked really well for me.
Yeah, well, as a story, Les Mis has a soft spot for me and probably for you in a similar way. Maybe not as much, I don't know. But we saw it on Broadway, and it's kind of got some really thematic things that can touch you in certain ways. But then the movie side of things, it felt like too little, too late is the way I would sum it up. But sounds like it's actually delivers okay.
Yeah, did you see this one?
No, I still haven't seen it. I intend to
Yeah,
eventually.
that's what I thought. I mean, but the thing that needs to be addressed first really is the singing. I mean, it's a musical after all, and if I do say so myself, I feel more qualified than most to comment on the singing, having studied musical theater in college,
Sure.
paying for ridiculously expensive private voice lessons while I was there, and being part of an a cappella group that got several paying gigs. Point is, I know a little about singing. And now that my own horn is tooted a little bit, let me just say that a lot of the singing in this movie was just not good, Bob. It just wasn't. I'm sure you heard that, and it's true. But I came up, it's a long movie, 2.5 hours, and I spent a lot of that time coming up with, I narrowed it down to a two-variable regression to map the singing abilities based on these two variables. Basically, the more famous the actor is, and how big the part both negatively correlate to singing ability. So uh,
Ah,
Hugh Jackman and especially Russell Crowe as the famous guys with big parts were the low points. But you see, it gets that would be the second variable because famous Anne Hathaway was in a smaller part, and so she was a little bit better. And then Marius, who had a decent sized part but is played by a less famous actor, he was a little better too. But there are a lot of bit parts by unknowns, and they just pop in with these random bursts of great singing every so often. But it's always the people who are not famous and the people who had small parts. Although I did love seeing Colm Wilkinson, who was the original Jean Valjean, pop up as the priest, for example.
so let me ask you this. Ignoring the singing, just purely, and maybe that's not a fair question, but I'm asking it anyway. Is it a decent movie?
Yeah, see, so I just had to get the singing out of the way, but other than that, there was a lot that was really great about it. Hugh Jackman was a great Jean Valjean acting-wise, and Hathaway was good as Fantine. Russell Crowe, he was okay as Javert. The students were almost all solid. Sacha Baron Cohen and Helena Bonham Carter made a very dark Thenardier couple. But I really appreciated the directing from Tom Hooper. It had a nice, cohesive visual style that evoked 19th century France and the inside of a Broadway theater simultaneously. And somehow he really made the story really easy to follow, which can be a problem for Broadway shows, for musical theater. But he just brought out the parts that were important to the plot, even though they're just these little tiny points. Just it was really, really easy to follow. Even things that I have listened to the soundtrack and seen it a million times, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. But he made it super easy to remember. So I was really impressed with that.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna have to move it up in my queue. I think it's like 275, and it sounds like it deserves to be at least 27.
Yeah, or you can probably grab it on HBO on demand right now, or just
Mm,
pluck it off HBO. Anyway, that's what I did, and it ended up being good. So that's my mini review.
awesome.